Hey everybody, Tyler the Fro here with an all-new deck tech for BT13. For whatever reason, they made the Wargreymon and Metalgarurumon Ace cards legal for this format, and today we're going to demonstrate why that's a mistake. The introduction of Ace Digimon finally gives players the ability to do things on their opponent's turn. And in the case of Metalgarurumon Ace, on Digivolve you can discard up to 3 cards to gain that much memory. With the proper setup, this finally interacting on your opponent's turn turns into steals the opponent's turn out from under them. Perfectly reasonable for 0 memory investment, right? Well, we're getting an entire starter deck centered around this card coming in October for English, I think. I want to use it now. So using just the cards we have access to as of BT13, I've created a deck that is capable of abusing that effect to the fullest. So right off the bat, we are a purple-based deck, and as such we have purple-based eggs. So I'm running 4 copies of the BT6 Omnimon, and this egg has once per turn on your turn, when one of your effects would trash a card from your hand, you draw a card. So we're going to be trashing a lot of cards with this deck, so this is a really good way of keeping our hand stocked at all times. Next up for rookies, we're running a slightly smaller rookie package than most decks. I've only got 4 copies of the starter deck Gabumon, 3 copies of Sistermon Blanc from the Jesmon starter deck, and 3 copies of Psychmon. Gabumon is pretty much the best rookie to run as you're building up a stack, because when attacking you draw a card, discard a card. I like this one a little bit better than the other purple Gabumon that you always see in purple-based aggro decks, because a lot of times we actually want this thing to live. We get access to a much better purple Gabumon in the starter deck, but again, we don't have access to that now, so this is kind of the best option we've got. Sistermon Blanc as a 3 of, I was finding 4 was a little bit too many. So, on play, trash a card from our hand, draw 2 cards. There's going to be a lot of cards in this deck where if you discard them, you draw another card. So, you can trash 1 card and draw 3, which is insane. Like, Scatter Mode isn't even that good by comparison. As well, it is also a pretty decent sized body at 3k DP, so if we absolutely have to, we can always just go aggro and start doing like early chip damage. Lastly, these 3 slots with the Psychmons, bit of a metagame call. I'm expecting a lot of Royal Knights, I'm expecting a lot of Blue Flare. So being able to keep our opponents from reducing their play costs, really good way of keeping them on the back foot and forcing them to spend more memory than they need to. Because ultimately this is a deck that punishes your opponent for playing too close to the 0 memory. But again, these 3 slots are pretty flexible. They could very well be Gazamon if you're facing a lot of decks where they're gaining a lot of memory. They could also just be the on deletion Gabumon for just more consistency. Personally, I'm liking Psychmon right now, so that's kind of where the slot's going. Next up for level 4s, I'd be remiss to be playing a purple deck without running 4 copies of Eismon Scatter Mode, as well as its big brother Eismon, nice and restricted there. And to round it out, we've also got 1 copy of the blocker Devimon and 4 copies of the new Porcupamon. So this is probably one of the best draw discard engines in the entire game with the scatter mode. So on deletion, draw 3, trash 2. There are some situations where you can just hard play this thing, or you can build up a stack where you Digivolve it on top of a Gabumon. It's going to have a Sunamon underneath it, so you attack, draw discard, draw a card from the Sunamon, it dies, draw 3 cards, discard 2 cards. You discarded 2 cards that have effects when they're trashed, you gain those effects. It's just a massive value engine, and it helps assemble the pieces that we need to do our combos. Eismon, it's just a good card. Like, it's free value, it's a free body in play. We're ultimately a deck that wants to assemble level 5s in play, so having a body in play for free, very potent, because you can just kill scatter mode, cheat this in, and then just Digivolve a level 5 on top of it and set up an ace coming in for the next turn. Devimon is kind of the same package where for 1 memory you Digivolve over one of your level 3s and then you've got a blocker. It's a very cheap accelerator, so if you can just go Digivolve for 1, if you have the level 5 you Digivolve again and then you set up again the ace. Lastly, the Porcupamon, it's a very powerful new tool for getting rid of floodgates, because on play and on deletion you just pop a level 3. It's a super powerful tempo card, because if you're going second, your opponent goes rookie and back, rookie and play, trigger an on-play effect. You go rookie and back, hard play this, choke you to 1, pop your guy. Next turn, you've got 2 bodies to their 1. There are a lot of floodgates that hurt memory gain, such as Gazumon, and having to sit across the table from one of these, I would much rather just slam this down and just get rid of that thing as soon as I can, because it kind of shuts off the whole steal your turn thing that I've got going on. And on top of all that, it even has a pretty powerful inheritable effect, so at the end of your opponent's turn, you draw a card and discard a card. And now for the bread and butter of this deck is the level 5s. These are what you need to set up the Metalgarurumon to begin with. So I've got 4 copies of Wisemon, 4 copies of Orochimon, 2 Neo Devimon, and 2 Skull Greymons. Wisemon is pretty much the best card in this deck. That isn't the ace itself. So on play or when Digivolving, you look at your top 3 cards and you can grab a purple or black Digimon from among those 3, and then put that into your hand, and then the rest go onto either the top or the bottom of your deck in any order. So there are a lot of times where if I've got enough memory, I will just slam this down, look at my top 3, grab something like Orochimon or Skull Greymon or anything that triggers when it's trashed. I'll leave another card on top of my deck that I know that I'm going to want to draw off the Metalgarurumon Digivolving, and then it's just pure value. The inheritable gives blocker, so on my opponent's turn, they attack in with something, not expecting to get blocked. I blast into the Metalgarurumon over the Wisemon, steal the turn, block their guy, eat him, and then massive tempo advantage there because they're down a Digimon, I'm up a Digimon, I've got a level 6 in play, and it's my turn now. The Orochimon, I very rarely actually Digivolve into this thing. It's really just there to draw cards when I discard them. But if I absolutely need to, when attacking, its inheritable is once per turn I can trash another card from my hand to gain 1 memory. Also at 8k, it's just a big body, so this is just eats up a lot of security checks. So it's not really the end of the world if I have to Digivolve into one. Neo Devimon is just kind of a catch-all for all the tamer heavy decks like Shine Greymon, Hunters, even the Mirage Galgamon deck where they want to have a whole bunch of tamers in play to just do the OTK. So as long as this thing is in play, when an opponent plays a tamer, I gain 3 memory. So it's very easy to just either choke your opponent on the number of things they're able to do, or it just steals the turn outright. Like they'll go to 0 or try to pass you to 1, playing a tamer that they need for the next turn, and then Neo Devimon gains you that 3 extra memory and just gives you everything you need to work with. And as well, its inheritable is on your opponent's turn. When an opponent's tamer is suspended, I gain a memory. Now that isn't a once per turn effect, so as long as your opponent keeps suspending, you can just keep ticking the memory closer and closer and closer, and it, again, just choking them and choking them. The Skull Greymon is probably one of the more flexible cards in the deck. It could very well be 2 copies of the new Astamon, because that one can grab level 4s out of your trash. But I was finding that being able to sneak retaliation under one of my Digimon is really potent right now, and it gives you an out against, say, Black or Greymon, because you can swing in with Eismon into the Black or Greymon, and then use the inheritable effect from Gabumon, tuck the Skull Greymon underneath, and you retaliation away their 1 threat. And on top of that, at 7k, it's not too big, but when attacking, if you absolutely have to Digivolve into this, you can trash 1 card from your hand to give it plus 3k for the turn, so it's just a big 10k beat stick on attack, which sometimes those just win games. Next, we have the entire reason why we're playing this deck. We've got our level 6s, 4 copies of Metalgarurumon Ace, and 4 copies of Nidhoggmon. Metalgarurumon Ace is an absolutely disgusting card. So, when you blast Digivolve this thing, on your opponent's turn after they attack and after they've resolved all their on-attacking effects and before you go to blocks, that's your window to blast. When you blast, you Digivolve onto a level 5 without paying its memory cost. So already 0 memory investment. And on Digivolve, you may discard up to 3 cards, and for every card you discard, you gain a memory. So if you can get your opponent in this range here, you can steal the turn. If you have a Nidhoggmon in your hand and you're using this as one of the discard fodders, when you trash this, you gain a memory. So every Nidhoggmon you have in your hand just extends the range that it takes to steal your opponent's turn. So what do we do when this thing's already in play? On attacking, once per turn, by discarding another card from your hand, you can delete your opponent's lowest level Digimon. Right now, there are so many decks that focus on getting one big stack that this can pop level 6s, this can pop level 7s. This is a really just kind of clean answer into a lot of Royal Knights. Because if they don't delete you on play, they play it, get some kind of effect, and then you just swing in and kill it. Like, this is just a huge tempo card. It keeps your opponent on the back foot. While it does have the downside of losing 4 memory if it leaves the field, the amount of value you get out of this card is well worth the risk. And especially with the way I've built this deck, even if you can't blast with it, like if say your opponent doesn't want to attack into a level 5, on your turn you can just Digivolve this for 3, pitch 3 cards, and gain 3 memory. Like, you still get to do that. It's a free go into a level 6, which means you've gone into this for free, and you can attack with it right away and still get that on-attacking trigger. Like, you can still set that up. As well, if you actually have absolutely nothing to do, it only costs 6. You could just play this for 6 memory. So, like, if your opponent passes you to 3, and you've got nothing else in your hand, or, like, you need to set up a discard outlet, you can just pass your opponent to 3 and just play this. That's insane. Like, on a turn where they're passing you a rookie, you pass them back a level 6 that can also kill their things on attack. That feels wrong to me on so many levels, but you know what? They let me play it. I'm going to abuse that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, to round out the level 6s, we've got 4 copies of Nidhoggmon. You'll almost never Digivolve into this thing, but when Digivolving, you can trash a card from your hand, and you can pop a level 4 lower Digimon. Again, just kind of a tempo play, but not really what you want to be doing with that card. You want to be sandbagging these in your hand for when your opponent has just a little bit too memory to steal the turn. You can blast into this, live the dream of having 3 of these things in your hand, and then just, like, it doesn't matter where your opponent's at. If they're at, like, 5 memory, you can just gain 6 memory in one shot. Go to 1. It doesn't matter. So now, for level 7s, we're running 3 copies of Omnimon's Wart. And this synergizes with the Metalgarurumon so well that I wanted to play 4, but I was finding that was way too many. Because it's a white Digimon, I can't grab it off of Wisemon and all that. But going into this thing over the Metalgarurumon sets up so many of your plays, it's not even funny. So when Digivolving, you trash your top 3 cards, and then you can grab 2 purple or black Digimon with play cost 8 or less and put them directly into play. Every level 5 in our deck costs 8 or less. So we can just put 2 level 5s directly into play from our trash. Like, if we blast into Metalgarurumon on our opponent's turn, discard 2 Orochimon. On our turn, we can Omnimon Zord, grab 2 Orochimon out of our trash, and then if we have another Metalgarurumon in our hand, when our opponent tries to attack back again, we just Digivolve into another Metalgarurumon, take their turn again. Like, it also allows us to cheat a Neo Devimon into play. It also lets us put Wisemon into play and get these on-play effects, so we can keep digging and stacking our deck. Hell, if we absolutely have to, we can grab a Floodgate and even a blocker if we absolutely need to. We can grab a blocker and a level 5. There's so many different combinations of things that we can grab for that Digivolve trigger that once we hit the Omnimon Zord, we are always going to set up for the next turn. We are always ready to shut our opponent down. It's just such a go wide, big advantage over our opponents that once we hit that stage, it's more or less game over. And even dumber, you know what also has a play cost of 8 or less? Metalgarurumon Ace. So if we have one in our trash, like say they hit it off a security check, we can just grab another one of these. And then if we have another Omnimon, we can just Digivolve another Omnimon and just do even more things. And then, even better, once we have those level 5s in play, on attacking we may put a level 6 from its sources into our hand and delete an unsuspended Digimon with a play cost 12 or less, which is most level 6 and below Digimon. What we were able to do is, with that attacking trigger, we can put the Metalgarurumon back in our hands, overflow the opponent to, say, 1 or 2 memory, just choke them there, and then if they try to attack back, we just blast again on top of one of our level 5s. We take the turn again. We repeat the cycle. And then we've got an Omnimon Zord in play, on top of another Metalgarurumon. Like, the value engine just keeps going and going and going and spiraling out of control. So to round out the deck, we've got 4 copies of Underworld's Call, 1 Calling from the Darkness, and 2 Madashitas. The Underworld's Call is another one of those cards that triggers when it's trashed, you just draw a card. So again, that's just more free value over the course of the game. If you drop a Sister Mont Blanc, you pitch one of these, you draw 3 cards. Your scatter mode dies, you trash 2 of these, you've drawn 5 cards total. It's just a really good value card, and if you just decide to hard play this, or if you hit it in security, it grabs a level 4 or lower purple Digimon from your trash, so you can just keep recycling those Eismons. It lets you just keep recycling that Devimon as a blocker. Then we've got the 1 copy of Calling from the Darkness. If I could run 4, I would. My god, let me play 4 of these cards. Please, 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 Bandai. Because by deleting one of my Digimon, I can grab any 2 purple Digimon from my trash, put them back in my hand. You know where I want to see Orochimon and Nidhoggmon? In my hand. So I can do all of their dumb tricks. It lets me grab any Metalgarurumon that may have been trashed. It lets me grab any scatter mode that may have died. It lets me kill one of my own scatter modes and grabbing 2 Orochimon, and then drawing 3 more cards and pitching those 2 Orochimon, and you see where I'm going with this. The Madashitas, we need a memory sitter to kind of take some of the sting out of like the bigger plays, like hard playing Wisemon. And on play, this does let me grab a purple Digimon or option from my trash and put it back in my hand. There is a considerably better Madashita coming out in the starter deck where it's another memory setter, but whenever you discard a card, you can suspend it to gain a memory, which works so much better in this deck. But because we don't have access to that yet, okay, yeah, we'll use what we can. So overall in testing, this deck is absolutely disgusting. As long as there's a level 5 in play, you always threaten to steal the turn from them. You always threaten to just obliterate them on tempo. There are so many effects that just draw and discard that you're able to sculpt your hand very easily. You're able to get the pieces that you need very easily, and you can just bury your opponents in card advantage. Like, it's not uncommon to Digivolve into the Omnimon's Wart, and then on your own turn, having 5 bodies in play. Like, you go from a singular Digimon in play to an army in the span of 1 turn, while stealing your opponent's turn so they don't get to fight back. On some level, I understand why they wanted to release the box toppers early for play, because it gives players a chance to practice with the ace mechanic, because it's going to be a big feature in BT13. But at the same time, holy crap, this effect, this card in particular. I haven't been stunned by a card in a very long time. I think the last time was like Death Xmon, where you take one look at it and you go, that is utterly disgusting. Why did they do that? And while the overflow mechanic does have its downsides, its drawbacks, I've already figured out a way to not only play around the losing 4 memory, I've also found a way to incorporate that into a core game plan with the Omnimon's Wart. So I've turned what should be a weakness into one of the deck's bigger strengths. And I think that ultimately is going to be a very big problem going forward, because I should not be allowed to do that. If you can build around any of the new BT14 ace cards in the same capacity where you can kind of mitigate that -4 memory, that's going to be very scary to deal with for a lot of decks. And a lot of players right now, because it's been 2.5 years of just I attack, my attack goes through, not having to worry about your opponent doing things on your turn, it's going to take a lot of time for people to adjust to that. And in that time, this deck is going to be absolutely backbreaking. So this has been Ty with the Fro. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff, and you have yourselves a great day.